He is busy training with a stick while Sylvia sits and watches him. She lifts him to help him pluck some fruit, which his hand cannot reach. Later, he sleeps in while she continues to prepare the portal. When she's not preparing the portal, they spend hours talking about all sorts of things. Those hours blend into days, and those days into weeks, while they spent every moment in each other's company. During their hours of talking, she never spoke about her own life, which worried him a bit. But he slowly begins to understand what sort of person she is. While he sits to meditate and absorb mana, he peeks at her. It was then he realizes she is the living embodiment of the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." To him, she is kind, gentle, patient, and warm, which is contrary to her trauma-inducing appearance. She asked him if he had a chance to dine still. Immediately, she plucks some fruit which she claims are particularly savory and rarely grow elsewhere. Her care towards him reminds him of his mother, who is gentle and kind, but firmly scolds him when he is wrong. Suddenly, he remembers something unpleasant. He remembers that there was a time when he had expressed his animosity toward the bandits he felt deserved a worse death. He will hunt them down if any of them survive. Unexpectedly, he is flicked on the head by Sylvia and falls to the ground. Angrily, he asked why she did that. She said perhaps he was not wrong about the bandits deserving death. She chose not to save the mage he fell with for the same reason. But allowing hatred and vengeance to cloud his heart will cause him harm. She advised him to continue life proudly with his gaze forward. She said he would come across misfortune again, but he shouldn't allow grief and rage to corrode his mind. She told him to learn from them and face the future with a smile, and only then would he be victorious. Being lectured on morals and life by a figure that appeared to be the epitome of evil had oddly stricken him deeply. Suddenly, he notices her wound is getting worse. She told him not to worry about it. She also asks him questions as well. To her understanding, humans usually awaken around the age of 12 or 13, but she wonders how they are able to form and utilize their mana more efficiently than many full-fledged mages. Then she felt he would be able to learn how to meditate and absorb mana while moving, and perhaps while fighting if he's good enough. She demonstrates it, but he wonders how she does it. She explains that humans have a very linear mindset in regards to mana. She advised him to start with small, mindless movements and work his way up from there. He attempts it, but it's difficult to do. She told him to practice hard enough and he should be able to succeed. He continues practicing while she focuses on opening the portal. With much practice, he finally did it and is eager to tell her. But unfortunately, when he looks at her, she has already collapsed while opening the portal. This left him yelling her name in a state of shock. He yells her name as he runs toward her. He steps on her pool of blood. He keeps asking her what happened and begging her to hold on. His emotions become intense and he uses his magical strength to turn her over. He asks why her wound keeps getting worse quickly. He looks at the portal and thinks about what it could be. He flashbacks to the moments they have spent together and tries to understand why she is getting worse. He goes down sober on his knees and realizes it is getting worse because she is creating the portal. With tears in his eyes, he feels her wound is getting worse because of him. He blames himself for her situation because she did it all because of him. She holds and tells him it is okay. He asks her how it's okay. How can it be fine when she's dying for him? He wonders as he cries for longer than he cares to admit. He cries for the first time like a child he is on the outside. She persuades him to calm down because there is not much time left to be wasted for him to blame himself further, but he continues to weep. She tells him he is doing her a favor by allowing her to leave the Forsaken Cave a bit faster. She feels her name doesn't suit her shape. Suddenly her body begins to crack and shatters into pieces. Then she reveals a new form. She asks him if she looks better in this new form like Sylvia than the previous one. He is shocked to see she is a dragon. She answers yes, and tells him there is no time for idle chatter now that she is in that way. She needs to use her original form to finish the portal, but they will soon be coming because her veil is gone. He wonders whom she is referring to as they. The portal shines brighter so that he cannot look at it directly. She gives him a shining object looking like an egg. She has no choice but to let it go and be safe elsewhere, even though she doesn't want to. She pulls out part of her wings and gives it to him to wrap the shining object in it to conceal its aura. He's about to ask what object it is when she marks his hands with magical symbols. She tells him everything will reveal itself with the mark she put on him. She doesn't have the time to make the portal go directly to his home, but he will arrive somewhere near humans. Suddenly, a part of the cave exploded and a mysterious figure entered. He advises Sylvia to stop her stubbornness and hand it over. Arthur sees him and notices he looks similar to Sylvia's previous form. She confesses to Arthur that she intentionally prolonged the transportation spell so that she could spend more time with him. She asks him to call her grandma, just once. He insists that she comes with him irrespective of what she has done. She bids farewell and flicks him into the portal. He calls her grandma inside the portal and she hears it. She is grateful and calls him her child. He comes out of the portal and lands on the ground in a forest. Sadness is written all over his face. He realizes she's gone and continues to sober. The thought of never having the chance to see her again disturbs his mind. He yells out his pain with tears in his eyes, and the birds of the forest fly away. His mind swims with memories of the near 4 months he had spent with Sylvia. He remembers those moments, how she treated him like her own blood and taught him the things he lacked since he was born. He suddenly hears a voice with no clue who it is. The voice says hello to him. He wonders if it is Sylvia. The voice replies yes and tells him she has shown him what she actually is, if he's listening to her right now. He guesses she managed to leave him with a message earlier. She tells him he is not ready for the whole truth. She says his body is that of a boy that has barely passed 4, and his mana core has already progressed to the dark red stage. He's not strong enough. She infused her unique will into him as a small parting gift. She tells him his future development as a mage depends on how well he is able to use it. He complains he never wants any gifts, but she interrupts him. She understands the anger, sorrow, and guilt she is feeling. But he should remember he has a family to look out for and a purpose to fulfill in life. She wishes for him to embrace the joy and innocence of childhood and become a man of which both his parents and hers can be proud of. She promises to visit again when his mana core is past the white stage. By then, all will be explained, and she bids farewell to him. How long has she known my identity? How did she even know? Questions continued to pester him long after Sylvia's voice disappeared. One thing is clear though, if he focused only on training because of revenge, this life would hardly be different from his last one. He can only move forward. He has no idea where he is. He climbs up trees of the forest with his power. His vision is restricted even with his mana, but it's clear to him he is in deep within the Elshire forest. He is barely using the mana rotation Sylvia taught him, yet he's able to use magic for a lot longer. Still wonders how he ends up there. He remembers she told him he would be near other humans. He keeps looking around and notices he is getting good at the tree traveling business. Suddenly, he hears a human sound from afar and dashes towards it. He sees a horse carriage and hopes they can take him with them. Suddenly, he hears a noise from the carriage. 4 men are getting ready to leave the forest while they are discussing how they will sell the virgin elf girls they kidnapped in the carriage for money. But their boss instructs them to put her back in the carriage and they move. Angrily, Arthur realizes they were slave traders as he sees a girl's face in the carriage. He had no idea how those pigs managed to get their hands on forest hounds, but he knew that getting one of them would be his best bet outside of the forest. With all the crap that has happened to him lately, he wants to finally be able to let off some steam on the slave traders. He needed a plan despite his eagerness to get home, but dealing with the slave traders first is the best course of action. He didn't strike immediately because he felt attacking them at once would be suicide, even for him. So he followed them, waited and gathered strength to make his move when their guards were down. He grabs a seed from a plant and throws it towards the hounds. They barked and woke the slave traders. They tried to shut them up. Without a weapon, he was forced to utilize a technique from his previous life, which he was not sure would work in that world. He dashed towards one of the men and slashed him. He took his weapon and thanked him for that. The hounds devoured his body. Not long after, another man came looking for the first outside, and he was slashed from behind to death. Arthur became tired in that body while fighting, so he planned to finish the last 2 in their sleep, but they woke up, searching for the other 2. Suddenly, he injures the 3rd man and continues to battle the last as he sights him. He was shocked to see a child's image and sees him as a golden egg that must not be killed accidentally. They both engage in a battle. They both hit each other hard. Finally, he knocks Arthur out. He grabs him by his ankle and tells him to give up. He observed his mana was like that of the wind magic, so he used fire magic on him, resulting in an explosion. Instead of Arthur's, his hand got burnt. He was mad and yelling, but before he could say anything further, he slashed him. He went back to kill the third man begging for his life. Then he saves the little girl. He blindfolded her because there were things little kids like her were better off not seeing. When they were a distance away, he asked her to look now. She thanks him, and he is about to leave when she grabs his clothes and holds on to him. She asks him not to abandon her in the woods. He tells her he needs to get home too and assures her those bad guys won't chase her anymore. Also, being an elf, she will be safe in the forest. She insists and tells him she is scared because her parents told her a child was eaten by hounds or tree golems. Frustrated, he asks her if she knows how long it will take to get her to home from here. She says she doesn't know. He was fed up and asked her to stay there for him to gather supplies and hope the trip would not be too long. He can only salvage what he can for the journey because neither of them know how long the journey is. They couldn't take the carriage. He can only hope the elves have something they can take back to the human kingdom. He finds some clothes inside the carriage and assumes they are hers. As they walked in the vague direction she pointed to, he got to know more about her. He asked her name, and she said, Tessia Erelith. And she also asks him as well. He told her his name is Arthur Lewin. She asked how he ended up in the forest, but he told her it was a long story, but she was ready to listen to it. He just told her he had been separated from his family. Tessia asked if he came from the human kingdom, and he said yes. Then she asks if it's true all male humans are perverts and have more than one wife. This question shocks him, so he asks who told her this, and she said her grandpa. They had so many different discussions. Out of the blue, she asks him what had happened to those bad guys that took her, but he told her they ran into a rather unfortunate accident. She wanted to know if they will come find her again, but he assured her this would never happen again. She thanks him for everything. Later in the night, he asks her to go inside to sleep while he keeps guard outside. He wanted to figure out what this will Sylvia left him was, but Tessia interrupted his thoughts. She asked him to come inside to sleep as well, but he refused at first. Then he later entered the second time she came because she was scared of sleeping alone. She promises not to tell her grandpa they slept on the same bed. They both sleep and rest well for the night. They continue their journey with unfair surroundings and time quickly passing as the only indicator of their progress. After Tessia's initial desperation and fear had passed, it was obvious that she had no idea how to interact with him. He admitted that his worries about his family and impatience to get back home didn't leave him in the best of moods. It was nightfall again, and he was busy setting up the tent while she was in the burning woods. What made their journey almost unbearable were the agonizing pains coming from his mana core that struck unpredictably. She asks if he was only okay while he was on the ground in pain, but he tells her he's fine. He was in pain the whole night she was asleep. It resurfaced again, but he didn't want her to worry, so he didn't tell her. Days passed and she appeared to recognize more of their indistinguishable surroundings. However, their pace slowed as she couldn't keep up with the toil of constant travel. But as for him, despite strengthening his body with mana, the pains didn't seem to stop, and it became harder for him to hide the pain again from her. One morning, she asks if she can call him Art, like his family does since they have gotten to be close friends. Then he yelled he would be honored that she referred to him, an humble countryside boy, by Art. They both tease each other. He realizes they have gotten closer despite the mental age gap. At last, they got to the gateway to her home, and she saw her other elves looking for her. Then she calls Art to join them to enter the gateway. They welcome back Tessia, the royal princess. He was shocked to know who she was. Her parents, the king and queen, and her grandfather, Virion, came to welcome her. The king appreciated Arthur asking him to accompany them to their home, as a small gesture of gratitude for helping Tessia arrive home safely. Also, he would like to know what happened. Immediately, he accepted and felt honored. As they entered the castle, the palace maid was ordered to wash him up, but he felt they needed to explain what happened first. He introduced himself to the royal family, but he felt it was too over the top. But he thinks it necessary for them to not treat him like a child. The king was impressed with his introduction, so he recounted what happened from how he got separated from his family. Inevitably, as the story progressed to when I had run into their daughter, the atmosphere shifted. The king was furious that it was humans involved. Without disrespect, he opposed what the king said, saying the slave trade is a profession, not a race. Immediately, every guard unleashes their swords at him. Virion asked if he begged for mercy or negotiated with them to release her. He said he was a mage as a child, so he killed them all, hence saving her. A guard was about to strike him, thinking he had spouted a lie, but Virion stopped him. He cared not whether they believed him, as long as she had returned safely. So he wished to return home to his family in Sapin. Tessia wasn't happy about him leaving already. This reaction of hers baffles everyone. But Arthur tells him it is not appropriate for humans to be inside such a kingdom for too long, based on history. Also, the priority is to ensure the safety of his family and let them know he is okay as well. The king was happy he saved his daughter, but unfortunately the teleportation gate linked to his kingdom is only accessible once every 7 years. He felt so sad, but he was assured he would be escorted back home. In his room, he was too tired to take a shower. Suddenly his pain begins, and it is getting worse. He doesn't know what to do with Sylvia and wishes she was there to help him. Immediately, someone knocked at the door, and when he opened it, it was Tessia, who bounced on him in anger. She was angry about his decision to leave already and how cold he had talked to her parents. He made it clear to her he was not being disrespectful to her parents. Still, she does not want him to leave because he is her first friend. He walks towards her to calm her down, then asks her to show him around the castle. They were busy enjoying the view of the castle as well as admiring the flowers in the garden when he pulled her from being hit by a sling coming from behind, and he pulled the punch coming towards him. Surprisingly, it was Virion. He tricked Arthur. He wanted to know his true ability and how he killed the slave traders. Tess asked her grandfather not to tease him. He said it was not a tease. But it had just been a while since he met someone interesting. He wants to know what he is made of. Virion throws a wooden sword at him. They both engage in a sword fight. He notices Virion is strong. Not an easy opponent to battle. Even with his mana and minimizing his movements, he still cannot keep up with him. He thought he needed to go faster and a chance to land a hit on him. In the end, he was defeated, but Virion got a hit on the head. Virion feels he deserves it for being arrogant, but he's still surprised to think he would actually be able to land a hit on him. As Virion attempts to start the second round, Tess pinched him and said it was enough. She scolds him for not going easy on Arthur, and he promises to do so next time. He felt honored, but Virion didn't think it was asking him to become his disciple. He doubts if Virion was serious because he's a human, and he's not sure if it is allowed for him to stay in the kingdom. But he assured him no one would dare to kick him out under his tutelage. But he refused because of his family. He asked him if he would stay if there was a way for him to know the well-being of his family. Virion knows of the pain in his mana core, and he wonders how he knows. He told him the reason for his pain was a beast of will. But Arthur had no idea what it was, so he thought back to when Sylvia struck him at his core. He explains it to him in detail and tells him it is doing more harm than good to his body. He wonders if Virion is a beast will, for him to know all of this stuff. But he told him he was a beast tamer. He said it is a title that can be obtained after conquering the monstrous beast inside him. He made it clear to him that going back to his family at that moment was a grave risk. The beast's willpower is too potent for his immature body to handle. If it is not too controlled soon, it will destroy his body from the inside out. He lies down on his bed with questions disturbing his mind while he sleeps. What is this heavy sensation pressing down on my body? Is this monster the personification of my worries, my burdens? The expectations placed on me, haunting me even in my sleep? These questions cross his mind as he sleeps when Tessia enters to wake him up. He refused to wake up and he called her a monster. This makes her angry and she yells at him. She asked if it was true he wanted to stay. He told her they would meet after the trip with Virion. She pinched him because he called her princess and not Tess, as she preferred. He apologizes to her and asks her to leave for him to shower. Outside the castle, Tessia's parents and Virion are discussing the issue of him staying in the kingdom. Her parents refuse, but are convinced by Virion and Tess because both of them have taken a liking to him. He said Arthur would be under his direct guidance and let everyone in the kingdom know that. Arthur heard their conversation and thought Varian really could be trusted. Varian, together with Arthur and Tessie, leave the castle together. They talked all the way until Tessia fell asleep. Varian tells him she has grown up in a lonely environment because she is the only princess. She has been hurt many times by those pretending to be her friends. Eventually, she grows cold and distant, building a wall constantly around herself. He said he had seen her smile and laugh more than she had in the last few years, when she had been with Arthur. For that, Varian is grateful to Arthur. They have gotten to their destination. Arthur wonders who the mysterious friend is to make Varian, the former king of the kingdom, come all the way to the rural area. Shockingly, Varian shouts and keeps hitting the door with his leg, calling the person inside an old witch. The woman inside insults him back by calling him a grouch as well. She comes out and he introduces her to Arthur and Tessia as Rhenia Darkassin, an old friend and a very special deviant that can help Arthur. Arthur greeted her respectfully, so she asked them to come inside. Arthur thinks being a deviant means she is similar to his mother, whose magic doesn't fall into categories of the 4 basic elements. He wonders how she will be of help. He apologized for sounding impatient, but Varian said her magic could help him reach his parents. She told him she was called a diviner. Magic of this nature varies from mage to mage, but she is quite capable. She said nothing can be hidden from her if someone tries to. She said she knows he is so special that she cannot even see some part of his life. She said his eyes have been both the past and the future, but he is concerned about seeing his parents, and he proves all that she said to be right. Then she asked him to lean forward and keep his eyes on the basin of water. He followed the other instructions she told him. He opened his eyes suddenly. He sees his dad and mom talking while his mom serves his dad a delicious meal. His dad loved it and made him ask his mother what the occasion was all about. She said she just felt it had been a while. She had prepared something delicious for him. Arthur sees everything. Suddenly they are shocked to hear a voice calling them dad and mom. His father drops the spoon in his hand out of fear after he hears the voice claiming to be his son. Arthur knows they are probably surprised that they are hearing his voice inside their heads. He skips the explanation and tells them he is alive and safe. He said he managed to barely survive the fall off of the cliff. He tells them it should be kept a secret, but he is currently staying in the kingdom of Eleanor, with the elves. He knows how it must have been for them. It has been hard for him too, but he is glad that they are both okay. He hopes that they don't blame each other for what happened. He feels proud of what he did back then, and he will do it again if he can go back in time, even if it means he would die. He wishes, but it is impossible for him to be with them at the moment. It seems he has a sort of loneliness to get treated. He assures them of not being in any danger, but he needs to be treated before he heads back home. He has no idea when he will be able to reach out to them like that again. He tells his mom of a mage who is a deviant like her, and that is Rhenia. He says all thanks to Rhenia they are able to hear his voice. He promises his dad he will keep practicing magic and fighting while he's there. He tells his father not to be surprised if he can defeat him in a match the next time they meet. He bids farewell and asks his dad to keep his mom and the baby safe. They are both happy and hug each other. Arthur raises his head from the basin of water and tells Varian he's ready. Arthur and Tess are in her hometown in the place where Tess is a princess. He is given a good approach as they thank him for saving their daughter's life. Tessie advocates that he express his gratitude by giving them a chance to take a walk through the city. On getting out, people tease the princess for being with Arthur, and they also make annoying remarks about him. Feyreath, who is also a royal child, teases them, saying the princess is too kind to hang out with a commoner like Arthur. Feyreath is probably one of the chief's sons who appears very spoiled and unruly. He talks about the fact that Arthur is only enjoying luxury because of the princess. Even before she could speak, Arthur had already defended the situation. Arthur, who also appears to be a very blunt child, savages Feyreath right back immediately. Feyreath, understanding the sarcasm, goes after Arthur, challenging him to a duel. The princess quickly dissolves this, scolding him for asking that they get into a fight. However, eventually she succumbs, pronouncing a fight, knowing full well that Arthur has the required strength to beat Feyreath. Arthur seems confused about his path because he does not have knowledge, or whatever a duel means. He's quite surprised that Tess is taking it really seriously. The duel begins, and at just about 4 minutes into the fight, Arthur had already defeated Feyreath with just one punch. It is at this point that the princess makes away with him before anyone can make a remark, or even before Feyreath regains consciousness. She praises Arthur for meeting up with her predictions and high expectations, as they made for the palace to attend other activities for the day. After a period of 3 years, Arthur improved tremendously with his training. On a fateful morning, Tess angrily wakes him up, twisting his ankles with her mana. Their mentor comes to prepare them from their early morning lesson. He explains that there are 4 basic elements, which include ice, gravity, lightning, and sound. He explains that this element can be controlled by a mage that has gone beyond mystery of its foundational elements. They can also be called deviants. Dwarves can only manipulate earth and fire, but like elves, they possess greater affinity to these 2 elements. The distinct trait lies in the fact that all dwarves can mold and bend metal, while talented dwarves can control fire and earth to such a high degree that they are able to conjure and manipulate manga. Elves are limited to water, wind, and earth elements, but with much higher affinity than humans. In rare cases, elves can produce a special deviant type capable of controlling plants. After the lecture, the tutor informs him that he only has a period of 4 months to train before he is sent off. Arthur, on the other hand, is unhappy because he will eventually have to go without Tessie, whom he had already formed a bond with. However, he has no choice. He prepares his mind to work hard so as to find his parents and make the world a better place. The tutor promises to break the news to Tess gently, so that she does not get really heartbroken. Arthur tries talking him into giving him a period of 2 years at least, but he ignores him, affirming that he will increase his training to a difficult one. Arthur would eventually look forward to when the 4 months would be over. He succumbs to this, but it appears that he is very worried about Tess. The third part is on my second channel. Click on the link below. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.